What are PSA grading qualifiers and why should you care what they are? I'll tell you why. Let's talk. Hello to all my sports card collector, investor, all of my collectibles friends out there in the universe. I hope that you all are having a great Sunday. It is football Sunday. I'm excited. Today we're going to be talking about PSA grading qualifiers, what they are, why should you care, and more information about it. Before we get started, guys, we did just hit 13,000 subscribers. Thank you very much for spreading the word to friends, family, other hobbyists. I really appreciate it, and never in a million years thought that we'd be at 13,000 when I started this channel a little over 18 months ago. March of 2020 is when I started the channel. It's been a really, really fun ride, and I've enjoyed getting to know you all. Quick channel update. I am teaming up with another hobbyist, a guy that I've met through the channel, Ryan McClanahan. He is a sports card historian, if you will. I think I could call him that. He has his own website where he creates articles and just knows a truckload of stuff about the sports card hobby and just the history of sports cards in general. I'm going to be working with him and bringing some of his work to light through videos. So I'll be teaming up with him. I'm excited to do it. And so expect that. I want to get more kind of educational type content on the channel outside of basic stuff. I want to also look at kind of the history of cards, different sorts of things attached to different sets, etc. So expect that type of content coming as well. All right, guys, let's dig into this. What are PSA qualifiers? What am I even talking about? So when you are looking at a graded card, now typically this only pertains to PSA graded cards that are vintage. So if you're talking about modern, ultra modern cards, stuff that's been graded over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, you're a lot less likely to see qualifiers. I see them a lot more in 80s cards, really 80s and going back. Now, I'm sure there's probably some 90s cards as well that have qualifiers, but for me, I see them quite a bit when I'm looking at 80s cards and then going backwards from there. You can see the 6 qualifiers on the PSA website, psacard.com. The first one on the site is marks, so that's exactly what it sounds like. There are marks on the card. Miscut is another one, MC, and excuse me, marks is MK, miscut is MC. Off center is a very common one, and you'll see this with vintage cards. Off center is OC. Staining is ST, exactly what it sounds like. There is a stain on that card. PD is a print defect. And OF is out of focus. I don't see that one as much. It does pop up here and there, but I don't see that one as much. The one that I see the most is definitely OC. But you'll see a variety of these. If you're buying vintage sports cards of any kind, you will run into these eventually. The reason why this is important to know is because a PSA 9 that has a qualifier, I'm just using a 9, could be an 8, could be a 7. If it's got a qualifier next to it, it's not a true PSA 9 or PSA 8 or PSA 7. In many cases, and I've heard different hobbyists kind of have different opinions on this, but I've heard quite a bit that it bumps it down 2 grades. So in other words, if you have a PSA 9 OC, some people will look at that as more of like a PSA 7. It bumps it down 2 grades like a straight PSA 7. Now, there's not consensus on this. People argue this all the time. I've seen this in vlogs and blogs and everywhere else. So this is not a exact science, but the point is that a PSA 9 that has a qualifier in the hobby is not looked at the same way as just a straight up PSA 9 or a straight up just graded card, whether it be 8, 7, 6, 5 or whatever it is. That's very important when you're looking at pricing. When you're looking and making comparisons on prices for vintage cards, a PSA 9 with a qualifier is not the same as a 9 without one. It's not even close. Because of this confusion, I think this is the reason why PSA changed their policy on qualifiers fairly recently in 2021, and I'll read it actually off of their site. This is straight from their blog, and this is good to know, and they kind of explain kind of what it's all about. And it reads here, as part of our efforts to continually improve operational efficiency as we work through the backlog of orders, PSA no longer requires submitters to decide whether to request no qualifiers on items in their submission. Characteristics such as centering, staining, print defects, and focus will typically impact the numerical grade rather than carrying a qualifier. The qualifiers will be used infrequently and at the discretion of the grading staff when they feel it's in the card's best interest to apply a qualifier. And so one thing that they do notate here, they've got optional qualifiers as OC, off center, ST, staining, PD, print defect, OF, out of focus. The required qualifiers are MK, marks, and MC, miscut. So they use that as kind of a reference guide as to what to expect moving forward. And I believe they changed this in 2021. So moving forward, if you send in a vintage card or any card for that matter, but this is most likely going to hit on vintage cards, is graders are required to issue marks and miscuts qualifiers. The optional ones are all the ones that we said: off center, staining, print defect, and out of focus. But this is an important change because there was a lot of, there was confusion around qualifiers for a long time, especially with new hobbyists, new people coming into the hobby, trying to figure out grading in general. It's hard enough to figure out, okay, which grading companies and what do the grades mean and why does this get a 5 and this gets an 8? And then when you add in qualifiers, especially off center, I think for me personally, why would you have 8 off OC off center instead of just giving that card the numerical grade of what it would be, taking the fact that it's off center into account? And that's something I think that a lot of people probably shared a similar opinion of. It just adds confusion, and when you're trying to compare cards, it makes it very difficult. So as I said when I started the video, this is mostly vintage cards. When you're looking on the secondary market, when you're looking at eBay, when you're looking at MySlabs, when you're looking at ComC, at some of these platforms, when you're looking at secondary sales of cards, they are not one for one. They're not the same. If it's got a qualifier, it is going to be typically, from what I've seen anyway, priced less than one that does not have a qualifier attached to it. And there is confusion there. And so that's why I want to make that abundantly clear. If anything gets across on this video, it's that they are not apples to apples comparisons. If you are going to buy a card with a qualifier, really kind of digging deep, doing the research, talking to other hobbyists, other vintage collectors that maybe also collect those types of cards. Why do they collect them? Why do they not? Why do they steer clear of qualifiers in general? I think those are all important topics. So guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Are you collecting vintage sports cards in general? Have you seen these on modern, ultra modern cards? And then also, what are your thoughts on qualifiers? Will you buy a PSA graded card that has a qualifier, or do you just steer clear of them and just buy only the ones that don't have a qualifier? I would like to hear your thoughts on this, guys. Let me know in the comments below. As we always say, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.